deep within the southern part of the Commonwealth, in a marshland isolated from most survivor settlements, lies a coven of witches. Rumor has it they've settled in the former nest of a mirelurk queen, seeking resources, solitude, and the freedom to engage in their odd obsessions. Today, we venture into their decrepit abode to see just how true the rumors are. As we approach the witches' territory, we can sense an ominous presence. The land is thick with radiation, red, glowing eyes peer at us from a distance, and an unnatural sound that stirs the wildlife emanates endlessly from the direction of their home. Upon opening the large gate, we're greeted with many strange totems looming over us, with thick webbing and odd lights strung about. Tombstones bearing ghostly images rest on the ground. Dead, spiky plants line the fences. Ahead, there's an unfinished wooden structure that rests before a body of marsh water. A circle of undead ghoul heads jut out from the earth, gnawing and lunging at any prey that moves. No doubt this is the work of the witch of nature. I wonder if those ghouls will dig themselves out of those graves before the stingwings find them. The only way into the house is to traverse this bridge. It looks poorly maintained and like it could collapse at any moment, but if we take our time, we should be safe. The bridge is high off the ground level, and when we look down in the marsh, we can see bodies in the water. They appear to have sunken into the thick mud and likely irradiated water and fog that lingers here. The rumors say this water causes hallucinations, and though it's not very deep, the mud is like a quicksand, spelling doom to any who are unlucky enough to lose their balance or fall into a trap. It's strange these witches set traps for those who wish for their services. We can also see bodies tied to posts and burned at the stake, like many witches were in early history. This is likely a symbolic form of revenge. Regardless, we finally set foot on their porch. The architecture of the building is quite expressive in that the roofing resembles a witch's hat. They also appear to have a neon sign on the wall that depicts their presence, a single witch with 3 eyes, and of course a witch's hat. On the porch, we see a mutant hound that appears to have gotten into the candy set out by skeletal remains and gourds, and had since fallen asleep. What a naughty dog. Well, even if the guard dog is off duty, the signs on the wall and the figures looming over us from the upper floor window assures us that we will be watched closely. The foyer displays a religious painting of a blood moon amongst a radiation storm. We can also see the goods they sell and relics of their culture in here. They display for purchase potions for strength, love, and stamina, and even rarer, they sell wives' tears. They also sell incense. They have one lit, and it fills the air with the smell of sage. They also have a mystery potion located next to the incense. Despite the lack of a label, it is encased in a mesmerizing crystal bottle, and it appears to be in limited supply. On the opposite wall, the witches have charms for sale. If you're looking for extra protection from the creatures of the night, or that scent you think replaced your neighbor, maybe a cat's head will help ease your paranoia, as cats can be used to identify scents, at least by the account of these witches. If you want extra caps, if you want to become an Upper Stands resident of Diamond City, if you want Bunker Hill to go to war with Good Neighbor, then an evolved monkey's paw is able to grant up to 5 wishes, but you should beware of how these wishes are granted. For those interested in the occult and spirits, they have Ouija blocks and voodoo plushies available. On the table below, we see books that contain novice spells, a magnifying glass that can reveal spirits and orbs, and the skulls are just for decoration. There are also charmed lockets that look similar but grant different effects. Ask the witches for more details. They said only paying customers would be filled in. This next item isn't for sale, but it's a historical piece for these occult hags. The Mothers, the original witches of Salem, Massachusetts, preserved and idolized behind a spelled barrier. These witches only speak in the dark tongue of the occult, and they tell secrets of the future and past. Just don't stick your fingers in their box. That's what the side table of meat is for. The door to the left leads to the channeling room. Fallen beasts cover every wall. A circle of candles outlines our path to the center of the room where the Witch of Nature performs her rituals. Here, you can speak with the dead. With her crystal orb and talking dead, those from the great beyond speak to its visitors. The services these witches provide are odd, and they cost a great amount. They don't charge caps, but for sport. Yes, the price of trade for these three is that you play their games. The tales of these witches and their games vary from being buried alive to barbaric battles involving their tamed beasts, or a sick test of your body's limits by having you consume unspecified ales and tonics to purge whatever toxin they've pumped into you. There's a bathroom in the channeling room that connects to the kitchen. It's a small space consisting of an outhouse seat, a table with a candle, a bucket, and dirty water for washing. Some ghoul heads and curtains cover the holes in the wall caused by the tree that grew through the house. The restroom is poorly maintained. Blood is splattered along the floor, the toilet seat, and the wall, and strangely, there are human remains in here. But they're only the legs and the arms. Each leg is resting on either side of the toilet, and the hand is on the table. This disturbing look gives new meaning to the term blowing up the toilet. When we exit through the opposite door, we enter the kitchen. There is a large cauldron against the back wall, and it's centered, with shelves and tables arching around it, storing pots, pans, meat, longboards for stirring, silk beans, deathclaw eggs, and many other things. If we look inside the cauldron, we can see there is a rotten meal being prepared, no doubt seasoned with human and animal meat and strange fungi. Past the cauldron on the corner of the wall is another cooking section where the flesh of slain beasts hang readily on the wall for gutting and portioning. I presume they use the large lumberjack in the corner to saw down the large meat. There's also a cooking stove and a prepping table, and just past that there appears to be meat fastened to a cooking station where the blood appears to be draining from said meat, only to be caught in the blood trough. I shudder at the thought of what this blood is used for. Perhaps they sell it to vampires. If we turn around, we can actually get a better look at the dinner table, which seems to have a large mole rat roast prepared on the table by this human mole rat hybrid. How ironic. The table is also set with a silver fork and knife at the ready to carve this bountiful roast. It comes with a side of crispy squirrel bits and an unlabeled white beverage. Candles light each end of the table, and we can see the witches actually had some dinner guests. It's clear with the difference in their decomposition stages that these guests were not here at the same time, but it's also clear that we should not accept whatever meal they offer us. Turning away from the dinner table, we can get a first-hand account of what their pit looks like. There's a balcony that overlooks an old destroyed structure. Animal cages have been fitted into the walls, and there are signs up top to help us gauge the mood. One sign reads, "Keep your head in the game," and the shelves of human skull trophies demonstrate what happens when their captive's head is not in the game. The other sign reads, "Home is where the hunt is," and it's clear this sport is very important to the Witch of the Hunt. There's a dog in the cage battling a human. The floor is littered with gore and limbs for the dog to feed upon. Other beasts are rattling in their smaller cages, sticking their heads out where they've managed to make a large enough gap. Weapons are mounted in some areas for the contestants to use, but I imagine they have very little ammunition or are incredibly dull. There's a door that leads to outside of the pit, but it can't be opened unless one of the witches flips a switch to open it. Likewise, the captives and beasts are only released by the flip of another switch, condemning their captives to multiple rounds of combat before they can claim their freedom if they survive it. On the far wall near the entrance, there's a staircase that leads to the second floor. On the way up, we can sense a presence staring at us, waiting, watching, planning. Their ominous black shadows casted over us during our ascent, but they don't follow us with their gaze. They don't even acknowledge us as we reach the top floor. They seem almost frozen in place, doomed to see more victims lured into the nest they too likely disturbed. On the right, on the wall, there's another depiction of a witch. This one has horns on her head. To the left, we can see the large window that overlooks the porch and the creatures who lurk in it. They're probably watching the Burning Man from here. On the floor behind them seems to be the setup for a ritual of sorts. Candles surround a skeleton, accompanied by a chunk of meat, a dark book, a bit of ash blossom, and a small combat knife. Turning left, away from the ritual nook, the room opens up, revealing a large walkway, a sitting area, a room on the right, and a room to the end opposite of us. There's a hole in the wall on the room to our right. Peeking inside, we can see the chemistry station that likely caused this hole during some experimentation. Let's take a closer look from inside the room. This must be the fabled Mad Witch Doctor and his lab. Straight away, we can see he's operating on a super mutant corpse, drunkenly operating, as there are bottles of alcohol on the ground. Looking around the room, we can see various substances, chemicals, compounds, bones, limbs, blood packs, and operating tools placed not so neatly on the shelves. Mysterious glowing formulas emit their light through glass bottles. I sure hope that isn't someone's pee. Posters fill the walls. Bags of meat are gathered in a corner. There's a large cooler for keeping things cold, and a station where the witch doctor can change your appearance with his legendary glamours. It costs a hefty price, of course, if it's successful, and it's free if it's botched. Once again, we see the chemistry station in this little corner, and heading back on the other side of the room, there's another door. This leads to the cold room. Here is where the witch doctor stores bodies for experimentation. He sleeps on the bottom storage shelf among the dead, comfortably. Well, this place has given me a bit of a chill, so I think we should leave the Mad Doctor to his work. The room at the back is a washroom, complete with a toilet, bucket, dirty water, candles, wall decor, and a bathtub that seems to have been used recently, as it's still filled with bloody water. The sitting room is actually quite tame. A couch made from Brahman sits on the side, and an old, moldy, fungus-infested couch sits against the giant's tree with plant branches growing out from it. The coffee table is equipped with snacks, reading material, light, and a severed head. To the right, there's a bookshelf, housing all their dark arts, studies on witchcraft, some leisurely comics, and journals on their own research. Mushrooms with an orange glow sprinkle the upper floor, and we can see a cage to the left of the bookshelf, sheltering a domesticated charred feral ghoul, one of the Witch of Nature's pets and experiments. There's also a display case to the right of the bookshelf, housing a Brahmin skull and a mixture of plants and fungus, and a shovel leaning on the side of it. Approaching the Witch of Nature's bedroom, we can tell she prefers a bit of an open floor plan, as her room is not separated from the shared space by any walls, so as to not obstruct her view of the tree that grew into the house. She's brought in pounds of dirt for her resting area, and has planted some herbs in it. On the wall, we see a picture of a large buck, some shelves with herbal extracts and creams taken from plant and fungi, a flower in a jar, and a festive plastic pumpkin. The small shelf beside her bed has more of the same, except we can see her witch's broomstick and what appears to be her wand on the shelf. Her bed is surrounded by branches. A skeleton rests on it along with a book, a pillow, and a mutated fern flower. She found a way to grow purple glowing vines along her wall, and I imagine if she could, these would be growing everywhere. Right behind us is a small desk space where she studies plants and writes her notes. She prizes a very experimental form of flora that she's only recently discovered. She keeps it safe in this display case. The final room in the house is on the opposite end of the common area. Let's tread carefully. It appears those unlucky enough to snoop around up here or offend the witches can become captives in their pit with the slightest misstep. As we approach the Witch of the Hunt's room, there's an ominous feeling. The room is poorly lit. Her witch broom rests against another odd totem and a bound prisoner, and the walkway becomes claustrophobic as we pass the idle armor racks that displays the clothes this witch makes. An eerie red glow peers at us from the back of the room. There's a stall from which the clothes can be bought, and behind it lies the workshop area, where metals, fabrics, hide, and other resources are stored. She also keeps a pet mole rat in here, with a bowl of crispy squirrel bits by its cage. The rest of the open space is oftentimes cluttered with loose armor pieces collected from her victims. and the room in the corner with those harsh red eyes can finally be seen clearly. It's where she rests, on a bed made of old mattresses, tannery hides, and bags of meat and flesh. The dresser is stuffed with her favorite clothes. Some masks that she's made lie on top. It's clear the abode of the witches is indeed one to steer clear of if you're not prepared to pay for their services, because oftentimes the cost may be everything you have.